You ready? Let's go. 2 Minute Daily Devo for Wednesday, June 30th. I'm in the Contemporary English Version today, and our verse of the day comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 5. I'll give you a little context here before we get to our verse of the day. This is Jesus talking. It's coming from probably his most famous sermon that he preached or taught, called the Sermon on the Mount. And he goes through quite a few things, and it's an amazing read. I encourage you to read the whole thing because he really takes society at that time and flips it on its head, as he did all the time. Jesus came down and talked about the cultural norms of the day, and he said, no, this is what you normally do. Here's what you should do in the kingdom of God. And he does that again, but he goes through a bunch of things. He first talks about the blessings, and he talks about who God is going to bless. God bless those who grieve. God blesses those who are pure in heart. And he goes down to salt and light, talking about how we need to be the salt and light. He goes through some of the laws of Moses, talks about anger, talks about marriage, divorce, promises, revenge, and then he gets to love. And this is where our verse of the day comes from. And he starts out and says this: you've heard people say, love your neighbors and hate your enemies. But our verse of the day says this, verse 44, but I tell you to love your enemies and pray for anyone who mistreats you. Now, like I said, this is not what was normally taught in that day. Normally what was taught is love your neighbors and hate your enemies. That's what was taught, and that's pretty much what's taught today, right? But he takes that and says, no, anyone can do that, he says. If you only do that, even the people that don't love God do that. That's no big deal. But he says you need to love your enemies and pray for anyone who mistreats you. That takes the cultural norms, the societal norms, and flips them upside down. And that's what Jesus did. And that's what he's doing for us today. That if you're going to be a follower of Jesus Christ, you can't go with and do what everyone else does. Everyone else does love your neighbors and hate your enemies. No, God says this: if you want to serve me, you need to love everyone. And you need to do more than love. You need to pray for those that mistreat you. Now that would be like a bully at school, a neighbor that is irritating, a coworker, even someone in your own family that we need to stop. And those that mistreat us, we need to pray for those people. So I want you to think about that today as you head out. If there's someone in your life that is someone that mistreats you and someone that is maybe considered quote unquote an enemy, God says, hey, you need to love those people. And not only that, but you need to pray for them. And here's the thing: when you start praying for people, watch what God does in their lives. Watch how he can mend relationships and change their lives when you start praying for them. All right, that's it, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.